Okay, so here we're going to talk about factoring quadratics, and this will help you work on the assignment that says it's titled Factoring Quadratics, and I believe it has intro. The other one says quadratics, quadratics factoring, I believe. I think they switch it around. I know that quadratics is the first word there. But if you look at this assignment titled Factoring Quadratics Intro, this would help. And I'll show you how to do this. Now, factoring, what does factoring mean? Well, if you recall, when we factor, let's factor the number 12. It's when we do this, and we list two numbers that multiply to give you the number that we're factoring. So 1 times 12 equals 12. 2 times 6 equals 12, and also 3 times 4. So those are all of my different factors that when I multiply, I get 12. So this concept of factoring we're going to be using, but also we're going to be using and expanding. Instead of using a number or an integer like 12, we're now going to be factoring the same way with the quadratic, given a quadratic. So here's the quadratic equation. My purpose here, when it says factoring, is to end up with two binomials. So I'll have something like this minus a number. I'm just gonna throw in some numbers in there. Something like this. So a binomial is two terms, okay, two terms. And I'm gonna multiply them. So I'm multiplying them. Now, I don't have two terms here because, well, 12 is just an integer. This is a whole function, quadratic to be exact. So the two numbers that I'm multiplying actually are binomials. So there's two terms in each parentheses, okay? Essentially what I'm doing here is a reverse foiling. So once I foil, and let's say this is already factored. If I were to foil, right, multiply x to both terms, multiply the -2 to both terms. This is foiling. If I were to FOIL this out, combine like terms, I should go back to this term. So we've done this before, foiling. Now I'm going to teach you how to go the opposite way. So given the quadratic equation, how can I get it down to factored form? So again, my purpose here when I'm factoring is to get it down to two binomials multiplying to each other. Okay. The other thing, before I can start, is very important that I remember that standard form for quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now remember that a is a coefficient, is the number in front of the variable x squared. B is the number in front of the variable x. And c is a constant, meaning it's just a number, it has no variable. So what I'm going to do is list them out and say, well, a, b, and c, according to my given quadratic here, a, well, what's in front of the x squared is a 1. So I'm going to put a 1 there. For b, I have a 14. And c is a -32. Okay, now that I know what my A, B, and C are, this concept of target product, target sum, very important and can be a little confusing at first, but it's not too bad. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, target product, is grab A times C. So A times C. So that's 1 times a negative 32. So my target product, so I'm gonna put TP, is a negative 32. And my target sum, my target product, I did A times C, so 1 times negative 32, I get negative 32. My target sum would just be B. So B, in this case, is 14. So I'm gonna write a 14 there. I'm gonna focus here on my target product, and I'm gonna factor just like I did 12 earlier. Okay, and list all my factors. I have a 1 times 32. And I'm gonna leave the sign. So one of these has to have a negative to get negative 32. Now I'm gonna leave the sign towards the end. And I'll show you why. 2 times 16 also gives me 32. 8 times 4 also gives me 32. And I think this is enough to try to figure out which of these will work. So I have to choose which one of these work. Now, what does that mean? Which ones of these work? Well, they must multiply to give me negative 32, but also add, and this is where my target sum comes in. So they have to meet both conditions. So when I multiply these numbers, I should get my target product. And when I add these numbers, I should get 14. So let's see which one works. Let's say, let's give the 1 a negative. So negative 1 times 32 gives me negative 32. Negative 1 plus 32 equals 31. Not even close. Even if I switch this negative over here, I would still get 1 plus negative 32, which would be a negative 31. So this will not work. 2, I'm going to give this one a negative, the 2. So negative 2 times 16 equals negative 32. Negative 2 plus 16 equals 14. And bingo, I didn't even have to go to the third pair. So this would work. It meets both conditions. This pair, negative 2 times 16, both equals the target product. And when I add them, equals the target sum. Now let's say you gave the 16 a negative first. It would work for my target product, but once I add them, 2 plus a negative 16, that would equal a negative 14. So it's really close. All I have to do is switch the sign. So that is why I leave the sign last, okay? So this will work. And once I figure this out, it's a piece of cake because this is intro to factoring. So if my A is a 1, then I can go straight into my parentheses, write x for my first term on both. And then I have a negative 2, I'll write that, minus 2, and a positive 16. And I'm done. And of course, all of this equals 0 as stated here. And there, I would be done. I have a binomial times another binomial. I was able to split this up into two factors of this quadratic. And that's it. Now remember, this would be my final answer if it's asking to factor. Okay, so you may see on the assignment, you may get a problem where they give you the area and they'll give you length and width, or they'll give you length or width. You're supposed to find, let's say they give you length, you're supposed to find the width. So it would look something like this. They'll have this quadratic equation as the area, and let's say the width, they'll choose one of these. So you're trying to find the other binomial that's being multiplied. Essentially, if you follow these steps, you can answer all those questions in that assignment.